Mike, I am so excited about our next guest. I think I've got my ducks in a row and we're ready to go with this episode now. I met Diana and was connected with her through a podcast website, and her topic is a very popular one. So I would like to introduce our guest to Diana Indries. Diana, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate you taking time to join us.
Thank you guys for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited to be here and I'm looking forward to talk some more about communication as I'm super passionate about it.
Will you tell just our audience a little bit about you before we hop right into the topic?
Yes. So, as you mentioned, I'm Diana and I own a platform actually called Better Topics, through which I'm trying to help couples have better communication and also still have a lot of fun whilst they're doing it. Other than that, I am physically based in the UK.
Well, and thank goodness for technology that allows us to record with people from all over. Mike, it seems like almost every episode, somehow communication gets brought up.
Every time.
And when I saw Diana's information, I knew that this not only would be a hot topic, but Diana just said that she wants to help people. And everything we do is about education and getting information to people so they can make decisions and have tools to utilize going forward in the relationship. And I think what we're going to talk about in strengthening relationships, I really think that it's great that Diana is doing something like this.
Yeah, and I do too. And I tell you what, this is not just for our newly couples, but for our older couples too. Mom and dads can really get a benefit out of this. So I'm excited myself.
Yes. So, okay, I'm going to put you on the spot, Diana. What is one of the top tips that you would give from the communication standpoint for an engaged couple?
The very first one would be, if they haven't done any so far, they should start doing now, is learn more about different personality types and also the love languages. So if people would be more aware of the different personality types out there, what type of personality they have, and what type of personality their partner has, they will know exactly how to communicate effectively with them, as in getting their idea across and also accepted by their partner, or even just negotiate on ideas.
There's so much in that sentence, Mike. You're chuckling too because she's hit on.
I don't even know what first question to ask because this is based off of a card game that you have come up with, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So explain to us what procedures we need to do and what we need to expect when we're doing this. This is a one-on-one game for couples.
Yes. So the card game is directed to couples. Now, as you very nicely said, it's for newer couples as well, but also for more mature ones too. I mean, the feedback has been amazing from both sides of the spectrum. Also, a lot of couple therapists love the game all over the world, because although many of them have been in the field for so long, they've never thought of making this type of game and also make it fun. So basically, alongside of helping couples with that communication, because we've created these specific questions that are repeatable in the first place, and also we've spent a lot of time creating the questions in order to make them askable in a way that they are not judgmental in any way, and they don't come across as accusatory in any way, because what we want is to help couples actually discuss things instead of blaming each other or anything like that.
And I know you had so much packed in that sentence that you first said that, Mike, I know the direction you were going with that was in that sentence that she said in the beginning. I think there's so many times, there's so much more to a relationship. There's so much more to each person in the relationship. Being able to dive deeper and learn more about somebody, you're making that connection so much stronger. And you're really setting yourself up for a successful marriage.
Well, what I liked about this too, and I'll be honest with you, I have not heard of this until today, so I'm excited that you're here. But what is so important to this is, sometimes the couple, and I'm just going to say it, sometimes this couple, they get too hung up on the marriage and the party. And I say marriage, and I mean the vows and walking down the aisle. I think if you start with something like this before you're even married, and that will help you communicate with each other, and I think it'll help you grow in the future after you are married.
Well, and one thing that Diana even says, it's about deeper conversations. It is about, like, if everything was just roses and there were no humps along the way, let's be honest, life happens.
It does.
And I'm not going to sit here and necessarily give examples, but there are trials and tribulations that can involve other family members, not even anything with your own relationship with your spouse or your soon to be spouse. And it all comes back to that communication. It comes back to what you know about each other and how you all connect together to get through whatever comes up. And Diana, I really liked when you talked about the information you shared with us about those deeper connections, those deeper conversations.
Yes. Now, I don't want to scare people off into them thinking that, this will be like a tedious shrink type of session where they have to talk about their feelings, throughout the game. It's not like that. It has some deeper questions, but it also has some lighter ones as well, because, again, we put a big emphasis on the fun of it. Because usually as people, even as individuals, the more fun we have doing something, the more we're likely to do it for longer and, multiple times as well. So basically we want to help couples and encourage them to have those important discussions, not just once. It's not just a one-off conversation. We talked about this. We're not going to revisit this in 30 years. It's about keep having the important discussions and keeping them in the relationship. Because what I found from working with many couples is that this is what actually leads to most of the breakup reasons. I mean, very rarely is just a one-off episode that happened and then, the couple ends up in divorce or breaking up. Most times, it will be the small things that add up over the years. But those small things can be sorted if they actually have the conversations around those.
That's so vital. I think, back, and I'm sure it's still the same way now, a lot of times, or maybe every time you get married and you're Catholic, you have to go through a set, I don't want to call it counseling, I don't want to call it classes.
It is kind of like that though. Yeah.
It is.
And it's not only Catholics, because I'm a Christian and we had to do the exact same thing before we were married.
Well, and I'll come out and say it. The first time I was married, it was a Catholic wedding. And I can remember it's the last thing I wanted to do. I wanted to get all into the planning and all of that stuff. But guess what? You can't walk down the aisle if you do not do that. And I think when you start to mention about counseling or therapists or anything, there is such a
stigma to it.
Thank you. Stigma. That's the word I was looking for. Not negative energy, but a stigma where something like this can be fun, something you can do in your own home.
Well, I think it's great because, I've been married almost 35 years, and sometimes I wish I had a card game to pull out to play with Pam, because I tell you what, sometimes when we get into arguments or disagreements, you know what we do?
She is a saint. We don't get into arguments.
We don't argue. But you know what we do? We shut down and we don't talk. And I don't think that's
worse
either. And I think that's worse than just blowing up and getting it out of your system. So back to what you were saying just a minute ago, though, because you could do this same thing every week, and your answers or your questions could be different. Correct? I
So
mean,
the questions will be the same because the questions
but
are
the
in the
answers
game,
would be
but the
different.
answers will be different. Yes.
And if you sit and think about this, it is a very adaptable way. And she did mention card game, but they also have a mobile version as well. It is a very adaptable piece that you can have in your life that's with the times. That if you don't want to do a card game, you want to do more mobile, you're coming back to the core item that you're working on, which is part of the foundation of your relationship, communication.
Well, Diana, if for our couples listening, what do you recommend or suggest to them to get involved with this that you have? I mean, a newly couple, newly bride saying, "Hey, let's sit down with my partner and have this conversation." Is it something they can order and get from you directly, or what do you suggest they do?
So they can either, so if they want the physical card game, they can go to our website, which is bettertopics.com, and get it from there. They can find it on Amazon, or they can get the app, which is available for both iOS and Android. And I strongly suggest everyone to use this at least once, because especially when you're in the dating phase and leading up to the wedding, whether you've been for a few years together or just a few months in my case, there will be many questions that you won't even think about, because first of all, you'll be excited about the wedding planning. You'll be, pulled to the left and the right about by everyone who wants to be involved and maybe help, or I don't know, just, be involved with that. And there will be many things that you won't even think of having to ask until it's maybe too late. I've seen many couples where, once they've played it, they're like, well, now it makes sense, but I wish I would have known this years ago. So for
So
example, in my case, with my husband, Robert, we got married very fast. I mean, very soon after we've met, like in 2 months after we've been together, he proposed, and 4 months later we had our wedding, and it's almost 4 years since that wedding. And one of the main reasons why we hit it off so well from the very beginning was because we asked each other all the important questions from the very beginning. And he actually told me after he proposed that he was sure that he's going to marry me in the second week that we've been together. He already knew. He just waited slightly longer because he was testing his theory. And also because my birthday was coming up, so he actually wanted to do it as a surprise for my birthday. So
I mean,
communication is crucial. And again, since then, we just talked about this the other night. We actually had only 2 arguments that were like real arguments. And both of them were before the wedding and related to the wedding.
I'll be darned.
wow. Okay, so let's go back to some tips. People they don't feel comfortable taking any step yet. What are some tips that you suggest in regards to communication? Like you said, you all ask each other all the right questions. What are some things that you suggest to couples that are listening to where they can really start with this?
So first of all, obviously they have to decide how comfortable they are with sharing. First of all, that's the main thing, because maybe one of the partners is very comfortable in asking very deep questions, but the other might not be so interested in sharing as much, and they might not be used to it simply. Again, in my case, that was my case actually. Most people think that women are the ones that are ready to talk about their feelings all the time, and men are the ones that kind of tend to shut down. Actually, in our relationship, it was the other way around. My husband was the one very ready to talk about things from the very beginning, very openly. And I was the one quite reticent, and I was like, I'm not very comfortable in sharing everything, like all the deepest things and everything. So I actually had to work on that myself. So, first of all, they have to get clear on what they want as individuals. I think this is the very first step and the most important one. And once they have that as a sort of guidance and blueprint, they can sit down with their partner and actually have discussions around those things, again, if they don't know exactly what to ask or how to ask it, even they can get the game, and the game will do that for them, and it will even spark maybe new ideas and things to ask about. But first of all, I would suggest people to get clear what they want, and second, see where their partner is at about those same things. Do they share the same values? Do they think similarly about the important things in life? It doesn't really matter what type of culture or religion you're coming from, but if family values are important for both, it is very likely that this is going to work well in the future. Again, my example with my husband, we are actually from different religions, both of us. And one of the arguments we had before our wedding was about the church we were going to be married in. Because I definitely wanted a certain church, although we're not very religious, we're not really going to church that much. We are spiritual though, and we share many of the same values as most religious people do. But, I definitely wanted a specific church, and he wasn't really keen on any church, to be honest, and then other people helping us with the organization of the wedding were involved that no, we should get married into this church and the other church and whatever, especially because logistically it would have made sense, because we had to travel like hours to basically comply with some traditions. They had to come to my parents' house, which was an hour away, and then an hour away back to the church, and then again another hour's travel to the actual restaurant where the party was. So because of logistics, another church would have made a lot more sense. But I was definitely set on this one specific one. Again, once we talked about it and I explained to him why, that church is important to me specifically, he understood and he agreed to it. And most importantly, he was on my side and he defended me every time everyone else tried to change our minds about it. So, once you understand your partner, you can actually support them in their ideas, because you understand where they are coming from and why they have certain beliefs, why they feel in a certain way about things.
The one thing, Mike, that I think of when I just listen to her talk about that is listening. There's so much involved with listening to your partner. Sometimes I don't let Josh get too many words in. And, in business, we talk about the power of listening. You can learn a lot. What information should you put out there to your audience and things like that. But in a relationship, you can learn a lot about your significant other, but also it probably helps with communication as well when you're actually letting the person explain how they feel, where they're coming from, instead of assuming or thinking one thing. And I know we're circling back around to communication, but I think a lot of times, and it's something that I'm not always the best at, if I'm being honest, listening to your partner is crucial.
Well, I know we're talking about listening and communication and all that, but tell me this, Diana, if I'm sitting down with a couple, which I usually sit down with 10 to 15 couples a week, how and what wording should I use to promote what you've got going on here? You know what I mean? How can I say you need to get involved with this?
I know what you're saying, because you know that this is a helpful tool.
Exactly.
And you also probably witness them maybe kind of not being on the same page over their florals, or their decor, or other things. And how could you kind of just segue in?
How could I promote this for them to say, hey, you know what? I think you ought to look into this. What should I do? What should I say?
You're asking about to not offend them.
Exactly.
Not to be like, hey, you need help with communication. You need to get this. Like, I know what you're saying.
Yes.
Diana, give it to him.
So basically you could use the angle of a game together. And from the same point of view, how, in team buildings, in companies, many times they send them off to do fun things together, because that brings the group together and strengthens the bond. it's basically the same thing with couples as well. You can say something along the lines of, guys, look, I see, you kind of communicate with each other, you have your connection, all is nice and well, but you can strengthen that to a deeper level, make it even greater, start off the marriage basically with a more, not bigger bond, but like a bigger connection, with each other. And you can do it in a fun way with this game, because it is a game at the end of the day. It brings the fun in the relationship at the end of the day. And it also helps with those important topics of the relationship itself.
Mike, I like where you're going with this is because when you're having a vendor meeting with a couple, you're seeing a glimpse of maybe a breakdown in communication, maybe a non-listening, and to be able to say, hey, you're all engaged. Have you all heard about this great new game that's available?
Exactly. That's what
Something
I'm
like
getting at.
that. And I see where you're going because just speaking up, just offering it, just being like, because it really is kind of like an education piece.
Exactly.
It's a tool to use.
Yes.
In a relationship, you technically could be helping provide a stepping stone in their marriage.
Well, sometimes when the couples come in, I mean, believe this or not, I have a lot more grooms over the last few years come in and join the bride and the mother, which there for many, many years, I didn't see that. I was just seeing the mom and the bride. But I mean, just like yesterday, I met with 8 couples and every groom was there. But,
really?
Yes.
That's awesome.
I know. But the thing about it is, this is the deal. Half the time, the groom will take charge and the bride says nothing. Or the bride says everything and looks at him and says, is this okay? And he's like, whatever you want. But I mean, I feel like that's communication. And I don't feel like a couple should start out not communicating. I mean, I feel like if it's not communicating that early before they're married, it's not going to work. And I hate to say it, and I shouldn't say this, but I mean,
but you're going to.
But I'm going to. But I mean, I have seen many couples that doesn't last. And the bride comes back to me, and I've done their second and third wedding. Maybe it's me. I'm not real sure. But
no, I'm going to say it's not your flowers.
But I tell you what, I mean, it's just that it's so important about the communication, and I think this is one major key that could help couples, especially young couples.
Diana, one of the other things that I'd like to touch on, Mike, those are really great points. But one thing we haven't talked about, we live in a completely different world now than when we were these younger couples getting married when we were their age. Texting, social media. I have witnessed since things have opened back up and people are out to eat more and things like that. Josh and I have sat, and I cannot believe the tables. I've actually seen people texting each other at the same table. It's obvious they are texting each other and they're sitting across from each other. And Diana, I think a tool like this, like I need to tell her how great her product is. I really don't. When we live in this digital age, and I am not one to knock social media, but I see my nieces, my nephews, my cousins growing up. The face-to-face communication
is not there.
I can't even imagine a relationship like that. Josh and I both are more to talk on the phone than we are to text back and forth. Like, there are times we need to text each other. But Diana, I'm sure you've seen and heard things from, I just think about these younger couples that they're DMing each other on Instagram and, boop, okay, you're married, you live in the same house. I mean, I would think we're back to communication. It is a whole nother animal when you're married. So Diana, I'm sure you've heard some things about that.
Yes. So I personally am somewhat in between these type of generations. So I'm still from a generation where meeting someone face to face was very much key, instead of just texting. However, I am still like somewhat progressing towards texting more. Interestingly enough, during the day as well with my husband, although we both work from home, I know it sounds crazy, but what we are actively doing about it is that whenever my husband has some time and he's not on calls, because if he's on calls, nobody can sit around him. He's just, too loud. But if he's not on calls and he can just do work, on his laptop, he will literally take his laptop and come downstairs and just spend some time here with me,
In the
and
same
then
way.
maybe talk with each other as well, in the meantime, or me bothering him from his task, whatever it is, we are here. Because another side of communication, other than the words and the questions we're using and the answers we're giving, a big side of that is the nonverbal communication. So whenever you talk to someone, if it's on the phone, you cannot always grasp exactly the feeling they had behind what they said. Whereas if you see them, you see their face, you see their gestures, you see whether they are honest, you see whether and you can sense this as well many times through speaking, but mostly if you see the person, even if you cannot exactly pinpoint what it is, you can tell if there's something wrong when someone tells you something and whether you should trust that 100% or not really, And I think that all these elements together make a good communication. There isn't just one type or one. I mean, I cannot just sit here and say, oh, you should just talk more. And, whether you talk on the phone or in real life, it's actually all of them together, that actually lead to good communication. Now, I understand that there are people who cannot really express themselves face to face as well. They cannot really express their feelings as well, mainly because they haven't been taught how. And again, I come from a family where we don't necessarily tell each other that we love each other, with my parents and with my brother and stuff, but we definitely show it to each other, by even, cooking a great meal for one another, or seeing each other every so often, or helping each other out with things around the house. So we do still feel loved, although we don't share it necessarily in words. And again, if someone else's love language is different, then they might not feel loved at all. But all of these things can be solved with actual communication. And if the communication has all its elements there, so the two partners willing to discuss, a bit of fun as well, why not? Because the communication and the things we do with our partners doesn't have to be tedious. It can still be fun. The communication doesn't have to be sober and very serious. It can also be lighter. Communication is done even if we talk about our favorite food, for example. It doesn't have to be always that serious one. But still, even that small thing actually can help us understand our partner better. Because what I think is most important about it is that if we don't ask, we will never know exactly what's happening. And how you very nicely said earlier, don't assume. Because whether you've been with your partner for a day, a week, or 30, 40 years, never assume that you exactly know what's in their mind and their head and how they feel about certain things, unless you ask, And again, I come from a family where my mom is very strong character, very, social, and my dad is the laid back one. And many times I've seen her taking decisions for both of them and not even asking my dad, because she would say like, I know he will anyway agree to this. And many times I ask her, I don't know if he's actually happy with your decision or he's not willing to put in the effort to fight you for it. I don't know which one it is out of the two. So with my husband, I actually had to consciously train myself to ask him about things, because I would just, especially because I've been alone for so many years, I would decide something, I would just do it. So with my husband, I actually had to, it wasn't a big effort, but still it was some effort on my side, where I had to sit back and actually ask him, like, by the way, I want to do this. What do you think? Like, I want us to go there. What do you think? Do you want to come? Do you not want to come? Although I knew his schedule, I still ask him, like, do you actually want to come? Do you actually want to go there? Do you want to actually meet those people? Or you would just rather stay home? Like, that's an option as well. Let's discuss. So again, don't assume, and make sure that you actually talk with your partner. Because if you don't talk with your partner, who's basically your closest teammate there is, then who are you going to talk to? What's the point in going out and talking with your friends who cannot really help you in your relationship, maybe with just some advice that might or might not be suitable to your circumstance? If you don't talk with your own partner, who you're going to trust then, if not the person that chooses to be with you? Like family, they are family, they cannot really say they had a choice in it. But your partner is someone who is, this new person that comes into your life and chooses consciously to be with you day in, day out. So if you don't keep in touch with them, if you don't make sure the communication with your partner is on point, then with who,
Oh my goodness. First of all, I got 3 things I want to talk about with what she just said. Number 1, how many times do we think about the importance of your partner chose to be with you? And what if we reminded ourselves of that every week, every day? Like, there are times that I feel like, I know I probably take that for granted. No, I do take that for granted. And it's not something I intentionally do. Maybe it's just not. But when she said that, that struck me that my partner chose, I don't know why, but he chose to be with me. And that is a higher wording than the word respect, in my opinion.
I agree.
And what you say about turning to friends or turning to this person, you are then not turning to the one person that chose to spend their life with you. And I got to be honest, when, Josh and I were older when we got married, even though we went to school together, we grew up 3 houses down from each other. He hadn't lived with someone for quite a while. He made his own decisions, and she made a very valid point. Kind of so had I. And you're taking those 2 worlds and putting them together. And how she just said it about, like, I want to go and do this. Would you like to come with? But if you don't want to, completely understand. Just that respect issue of asking of your partner, it's amazing how it circles right back around to communication.
Well, it does. You're exactly right. And actually, I've had a little lesson here myself, because very seldom, I mean, we do, don't get me wrong. I mean, we've done something right to be together as long as we have.
Well, that's because she's a saint. Sharon's not here, so I'm going to say that. She is a saint.
But I tell you what, we will make plans. She'll make plans, and I'll just do it. I'll make plans. She'll just do it. The thing about it is, if we communicate and we're not happy about it, okay, yes, we'll do that because you've made plans to do it. But we've never carried on a conversation about it. And that's really made me stop and think, hey, Pam, do you want to go have dinner with these people? Or do you want to go over to my mom's? Or do I want to go to her mom's or whatever?
Do you normally say, now we're not doing a therapy session, but
normally we don't.
But do you go and be like, Pam, we're at 7:00, we're going over to so-and-so's to have dinner?
Yes.
Michael!
But she does the same thing to me. And I'm not kidding. I just sitting here listening to Diana is like,
I say that because I know I've done it to Josh too. That's why I said that to you. I've been like, they're grilling out at 7:00. We're gonna ride up there, and
it causes friction, and because there's no communication there.
And Josh usually doesn't say anything about it, but the non-spoken words that she mentioned earlier, that could build up. That could turn into something else that's not needed.
Yes.
And oh my goodness,
Diane, thank you so much, because I tell you that's you just woke me up today. I guess I need to text my wife and tell her I love her.
But what she said about nonverbal communication, I mean, we could talk about this for hours. You have couples that are working from home together, 2 completely separate ends of the house. And what she just mentioned about her husband coming in with the laptop, at least they're in the same room. Yes, they have work to conduct, but it's that respect thing that, hey, I do want to spend time with you. Yes, I still have to work. You don't talk a lot about, this is going to sound silly, you don't talk a lot about nonverbal communication. And we've got some years under our belt. And for us to be sitting here saying this, What about these younger couples?
Yeah.
And like she mentioned, what if you knew some of this at the beginning?
At the beginning and not wait till the end, yeah. Or in the middle.
Diana, this has been incredible. Like, this has been an absolute fabulous conversation. And I got to be honest, I am really excited to hear feedback we get from people about just some of the questions, the things we post, how we've opened up, and Diana has too, about our own relationships. Like, we are all human and we can all be vulnerable. Life is not this just amazing painted picture. And if it is for you, awesome, great. But there are ways to get through it. And the person you're probably going to turn to is the one that has chose you.
That's awesome.
And this is going to stay with me for probably the rest of my life, Diana. And I cannot wait to share with people what your mission is and what your product is and how it can be a tool not only for those that are engaged or just newly married, but like Mike, you pointed out, you've been married for X number of years, for many years, and this could be a tool for you all to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best feedbacks I still warmly think of today is from a couple who knows us, they're friends with us, and they've been married for over 34 years now. And when we've launched Better Topics, because we've launched it with a Kickstarter campaign, they decided to back us on it because, they know us, they like us and so on. But they were like, we don't really need it. We've been married 34 years. We know everything about each other. The relationship is going well. And I was like, well, thank you for backing us. But once you get the game, would you mind us playing it? Because I kind of need some feedback on it, even if it's just about the quality of the cards maybe, or anything that you can, because obviously I look at this game with like parents' eyes because I've created this game together with my husband. So it's basically our first baby. But, I wanted some objective opinions on it as well. And they were like, sorry?
You've done pretty good for this to be your first baby.
Yes. And, they actually came back to me with amazing feedback about the game. And they also said that, listen, we've been married for 30 odd years now. And, the communication is good. Like, we're talking about things. However, this game still rose some very interesting questions and actually helped us look at things from a very different perspective and ask each other questions that we wouldn't normally ask. So, for example, one of my favorite questions is, when did you need me most last week and I wasn't there? And the sister of this question is, when did you need me least? And so when did you wanted me to give you more space last week and I haven't? And even just these two simple questions together make such a massive difference, because the more we ask them.
Okay. You got this look on your face, like it's resonating is what you're saying, is without words.
One of these card games.
But those two simple questions, like she just said, if they're not willing to just tell you and they need to be asked so you get their feedback, you can be a better partner in life.
Yes. And, the more often you ask these questions, after a while you can see a pattern what type of situations are the ones where your partner needs more support and you don't usually are there to support them, and as you recognize those patterns, you can be there in the future for your partner when similar situations arise, and equally when they need more space, So I think even just these two questions are so powerful in improving things in a relationship, even just thinking about them, even when you ask them and you think about yourself, when did I need time and I haven't had any? Or when my partner needed me most and I wasn't there as they wanted me to be.
I am sitting here thinking how eye-opening every question and the answer could be as a nugget to have a better relationship. Like, when I hear
can
that,
improve ourselves for our relationship.
But you're not only just going to improve the relationship with your spouse or your significant other, you're probably going to implement it in other things. If you're a business owner, with your friends, even though that this is geared towards your relationship, the tools that you learn along the way, you tend to carry on. And I think about if Josh gave me that answer, I would take it to heart because I'm hearing him say, I needed you blank when you weren't there. What? Like, I didn't recognize there was a time that I could have been there for you and I wasn't. Wow, like that is
That makes me
emotional.
sad.
Yes. And I think, Diana, too, another thing is it would be really important to be very honest and open
Yes.
with your answers.
Yes, that's why we've actually focused very much on making it a game. But before saying a bit more about that, I just want to go back a bit and say that some couples actually use the game with their children as well. So there are some questions which are obviously very couple focused, and obviously you can ask only your partner. But the questions that made sense for them, they actually asked their children too. So they actually suggested for us to make a specific card game, for parents and children, because they would very much love to use that, because they already started using some of these questions with their children, and the kids loved it as well, because they've been asked certain things that they haven't been asked before, and they felt their parents pay more attention to what they feel and what's going on with them through these questions. So, going back to the honesty in the answers, yes. And one of the main reasons why we wanted to keep this a fun game is that when we play games, generally, we tend to be more relaxed and there is no pressure. We don't feel like we're judged. We're just playing, and we're more likely to actually be honest in our answers and more, let's say, give better and more specific answers rather than just a yes or no type of question. And again, we work so hard on the questions to formulate them in a way that, again, they're not judgy, they're not blameful in any way. And also, you cannot really give a yes or no answer to them. You have to elaborate, because that's what good communication is, not just yes or no. It's okay, what actually happened, how did that make you feel, how did you react to that, and things like this. Obviously, you can use the fun elements like cancel the question if you really don't want to answer it and it's too deep for you. Or something that I actually suggested to a couple to do, because the lady of the couple actually got back to me and said that her boyfriend is not willing to discuss things with her. And, especially because they started off with the deeper questions. So what I suggested is for her to actually take out the deep questions, or the ones she thinks that would be too difficult for her partner to answer. Put those aside, because there are so many questions, you can still play it. If you remove some cards, it's still fine. There are plenty to play with. It won't ruin the game itself. And then once he starts getting used to opening up, to the lighter questions, getting into the habit of playing the game, then she can gradually reintroduce the more difficult ones, basically increasing the difficulty, of the game in a way. Also, with the main deck, we gave out 6 what we call custom cards. So these are basically blank cards that the couples can use to either generate their own repeatable questions if we haven't thought of anything that they would like to repeatedly ask their partner, or maybe just to simply add their own rewards if they have some specific rewards that we haven't thought of, and they would like to add to it. So basically, they can tailor the game to suit their specific relationship, because obviously each relationship is different.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So I want to circle back real quick. I like what she said too about not every relationship is the same. But I want to circle back around to what she mentioned about the kids. That's not necessarily what our podcast is about. But one thing I would like to add to that is going through a pandemic. I think, a lot of kids are still struggling with, how everything kind of stopped and things like that. And I'm no expert in that field, but helping with the communication of that, how they're feeling, where they're at. When she touched on that about being able to use some of those questions towards kids, I could see that being a very powerful tool.
Definitely.
Also, as you become new parents, and again, I don't have kids, so it's a little difficult for me to speak on. I could think utilizing something like this could help you establish good communication from the start, just like we talked about from the start of your relationship. And this is not very often are we speechless.
I am speechless, honestly.
When something is so impactful and you see the opportunities for how it can be helpful in really helping with successful relationships and marriages. For me personally, why we do what we do is also to help people, help provide education, help provide tips, kind of help guide you so you can get to what you want out of your wedding and your moving into marriage. So for something like this that we can share with our audience, that this can not just impact one couple, many couples, but could also impact their other family members, but years to go in their relationships.
Yeah.
And that,
I mean,
that
this
packs
is
a
a
punch.
tool that they can use many, many, many years down the line. And I mean, really, this should be the first podcast episode on us that you should listen to before we even get into the marriage. I mean, I think
Yes.
it's so important.
And we're saying the word tool, but I think we should better frame it as a game. This isn't going to school. This isn't taking a class. This isn't any of this, not going to a therapist. It's not going to an office to sit down and tell somebody everything, this, that, and the other. This is a game that you can embrace as a couple, which it is a tool to help you with better communication.
Well, I like how you said, Diana, that it's by calling it a game, you're more comfortable and you're not forced to say something that you really don't want to say, and it's more of a fun atmosphere.
And you can get out of a question
yeah, exactly.
that is not you're not comfortable to, but I can see what she said about growing into or getting more comfortable as you go. And the stigma's gone because you've said it's a game. It's something for you to do together and embrace. And that to me is very powerful.
Yeah. This whole thing is very powerful.
Diana?
And alongside the actual communication and the knowledge that comes from that, and the plans and all of that, we also have the rewards, which again, alongside, couples having communication, we also encourage them to do things together. And these rewards are things that most couples can do. We focused on the small daily things and the things that everyone can do, really, so it is anything from a 20-minute foot massage, for the winner of the game, to maybe choosing a movie that they like, maybe to going to a restaurant that they like, or doing a surprise for them once a week, or flowers, or breakfast in bed, or the small things that add up over time, and actually improve the relationship. So instead of focusing on the bad things that keep happening that we don't like, we can focus on the positive ones that we do with great intentions to grow the relationship regularly, instead of just waiting for the once a year one-off type of surprise, which, yes, they are still great. I'm not going to say no, but they are very rare. Whereas a relationship is kept and grown by the small things that we do every day, not by those one-off surprises.
I'm sitting here thinking about 100 things I need to do now. Send flowers, do card, something.
And the thing is, you don't have to do all of them in one day. You can space them out, and then
you can batch out your busy.
Pam will know something's up. Who have y'all been talking to? What is going on?
That would be it. But I really like about that it truly being a game and you getting rewards, and also in those rewards, you're also going to learn more about your partner. And wow, this is just, okay, Diana, I know we could talk forever. I really I feel blessed, and I think Mike does too, that we were able to connect. Like, honestly, I know it is so important about the people, the guests that we have on our podcast, and the message that we share out there. And I really do think I could speak on behalf of Mike to think that we feel blessed that we can share this with our audience.
Definitely.
because the impact that this can have, years you can't even see into the future.
Exactly.
Yes, so thank you so much.
Yes.
Before you go, I would like you to take just an opportunity to share how can people connect with you. And of course, in the show notes and the social media that we put out in regards to this episode, we'll have all of that information. But just before we go, if you'll wrap it up by sharing more about it, how they can connect with you and all of that great stuff.
So first of all, thank you guys so much for having me on your podcast today. I actually had so much fun, and I think it's one of the best podcasts I've been on so far.
Oh, well.
Thank you.
Before I actually let people know where can they find me, there are two things I want to say, and the first one is a sort of, let's say, advice-ish. When they go through the preparation for the wedding, one thing to keep in mind is to ask themselves at each opportunity of an argument, would this actually count in the long run? Would this actually help the relationship? Because the wedding is just a milestone in the actual relationship. The wedding is one point and is not worth sacrificing everything just for that one night of party to be exact and perfect and the way you've dreamt it. Yes, I understand why many people have this vision about it. I get it. But just keep in mind whether if it's that argument, that one thing that you really don't want to leave, is it worth it in the long run? Again, in my example, that one church was very important and I couldn't leave it. But there were so many other elements into the wedding that I wasn't bothered about, because I always thought that in the long run, I don't really care. In 10 years, if I look at the pictures, I won't care that element was there or wasn't there, Things like the napkin colors, let's say. I didn't care of those because I knew nobody even cares about them. I never cared when I went to other weddings, and I won't care in 10 years either. I would rather keep my sanity and my relationship intact.
That's amazing right there.
That is a very powerful tip. I just wrote down a note that we are going to highlight that specific clip on a social media, because the way you said that is perfect.
Thank you so much. And again, before I go, I just want to share a very big win for Better Topics. And it is the England Prestige Awards for the most innovative gaming product of the year that Better Topics has won recently. And I am super proud of this award. I've posted about it on our Instagram. I'm about to post about it on our blog as well. Right now, this award literally comes with me everywhere. I've been to the gym with it. I've been to get my nails done with it. And it's funny because I have a small bag, so half of it pokes out anyway. So that's a really good conversation starter. People keep asking me, like, what is that? Why do you carry it with you? Also, it's very heavy. It's quite big and it's very heavy. And people keep asking me, like, why do you carry that with you? And I'm like, you know what? Even if it breaks my arm, I'll still carry it because I'm so proud of it. And I want to show it off to everyone.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Absolutely.
Thank you. And for those who want to find me, they can find me either at, on our website, which is bettertopics.com. We have a form there that they can reach me through. They can also find us on all social media platforms. So on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, literally any platform you think of, I'm definitely there already.
You remembered almost all of them. Yes, very good. Yes. Well, thank you so much. And we'll have linked to your social media, to your website, all included for people to get access to. And Diana, it means a lot the time that you've taken, not only with me and Mike today, but what you have shared with our audience packs a punch, and I think in a great way.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. Thank you as well.
Thank you. For all of our listeners, please make sure you go and find Diana on the different social media platforms and follow them. I have a feeling, Mike, there is more to come from this company, don't you?
Yes.
I do believe
a lot.
Yes. And so thankful to have had the opportunity to connect with Diana. And so for all of our listeners out there, please go check out their website. And as always, we'd love to hear your feedback about this episode or any of the previous ones we've done. And if you like what you've heard, Sharon's not here. We're thinking about her. She's here in spirit. But Mike, what is her favorite saying?
To give us a glowing 5-star review.
On your favorite podcast platform. So thank you for all of our listeners for tuning in. Diana, thank you again for joining us. And until next time, everyone, take care.